Attendance will be noted. And we will move on to section 2, which is our review cycle policies. Okay, so in Dr. Russell's absence, Dr. Nicholson will take care of leading charge with Dr. Fuller. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. All right, good evening, everyone. In the review cycle policies 2.01, you'll see that there are a number of policies listed there. The first four, 118, independent study, 119, current events, 151, diversity policy, and 212, reporting student progress. There are no recommended revisions. They were reviewed by, as you said, Dr. Fuller, Dr. Russell, or myself. Policy 219, student complaint process. There are also no recommended revisions to that policy language, but in reference there, it just notes that there information about student complaints are in all handbooks, and there are also 2 administrative regulations that give more guidance as far as the student complaint process. 223, use of automobiles. There is a reference added. Dr. Fuller added a reference to students upholding established procedures for parking and added that to the language. That was the only change to 223. With 224 and 228, care of school district property and student government. Again, there were no recommended revisions. And finally on this list, 625, procurement card. Mr. Weaver added 1 new section added as far as rebates for federal procurement. So with that, we'll see if there are any questions or concerns.
I do. If we can go back to policy 119, current events. In reading this, the definition of it says a current event is defined as a topic of which opposing points of view has been promulgated by responsible opinion and is not necessarily enumerated in the course guide as content of course of study. I have a little issue with that definition in that it doesn't in any way realize, or it doesn't mention the fact that this should be a current topic or a contemporary topic. And it also depends on the fact that there must be 2 opposing views in order for it to be considered a current event, which to me, like, if, let's say the space shuttle blew up, when that happened, I tend to think there's people that would not be, on one side of that necessarily. So I don't think that opposition is necessarily part of the definition of a current event. I think its currency is what makes it there. And so I would offer an insertion after the word topic of contemporary, comma, public or social importance, and then continue on which the opposing points of view, and I would insert the word may have promulgated. Because again, I don't believe that opposition necessarily is the definition of a current event.
Noted. Does anyone else want to weigh in? Go ahead, Dr. Weston.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about this current events policy as well. I'm very leery of the language around indoctrination. This has become a really loaded word in the last few years, and we've been through a period where even the mention of a controversial topic leads to accusations of indoctrination, and I don't think that's what anyone is doing around here. And I think the use of the word itself tends to chill the environment for discussion. It makes you leery of addressing anything or bringing anything up at all, in fear of being accused of indoctrinating students into a particular point of view. Because like I say, we've had a lot of accusations where, even just acknowledging the existence of a topic leads to that kind of an accusation. I was looking at some of the policies for districts around us, and most of them do include that. So, and the previous versions of this policy that we've had here also include the word indoctrinate. I wonder how long it's been there, and whether it was included in an earlier time, or whether it came about in a more recent time when people were thinking more about accusations of indoctrination. I do see in one of our neighboring districts, Methacton, the line is does not promote or persuade students to a particular point of view. And I feel a little bit more comfortable with that. It gets away from the loaded word, but again, when you're thinking about a debate or an academic type of debate, you're often taking you are speaking for one side or another, or you can be speaking for one side or another. Does that, if you express a certain point of view, does that constitute trying to persuade somebody? I'm very leery of the effect this has on open conversation. And I just wonder, some of the districts around here don't even have this policy, and I'm wondering if we even need it at all.
Yeah, I think you make good points, both of you. I don't know that striking number 2 under authority completely changes the outcome of this policy. If it changes the way that it reads, if it changes, what we're looking for. I also, will defer if we feel we need this policy at all. I don't know if this has come into play very often in classrooms. I do think it is a safeguard to allow teachers, when appropriate. Mr. Liggett brought up a potential situation where I may be teaching health class, but it's a day where we need to veer off of that and talk about something that's major that's happening, and this would give the teacher specific leeway to do so when something major occurs in the world, where it's maybe not part of my curriculum, but it does allow for that. So I want to balance that as well.
Yeah.
But I think your point is well taken.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lofton.
I'm also.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Just point number 3 as well. I mean, encourages balanced presentations and open-mindedness. That sounds like a worthy goal, and something. It's important to have balance. It's important to be open-minded in your discussion. But there's also the issue with both sidesism, as it's often called. There are the idea of balance can lead some people to say that there's 2 sides to everything. Well, there's not 2 sides to everything, and the potential for the both sides argument, and that both sides have equal weight. If you're teaching in an astronomy class and somebody wants to bring up astrology, there's no other side for astrology. It's not part of a science class, and I'm a little leery of that as well. I'm less leery about that than I am about the indoctrination issue, but I think there's issues with that, and I don't want this to come out saying that I'm against balanced presentations, I'm against open-mindedness. That's not what I'm saying. But there's balance, and then there's both sidesism, and you got to be careful with that.
Mrs. Lofton.
Thank you, Mrs. White. So to Mr. Liggett's first point, I do agree that it makes sense to change the way we define this to say it's not just anything about which opposing viewpoints exist. To the point of, do we need this policy? Yes, I absolutely think that you do. As Dr. Nicholson said, as a safeguard to protect teachers in the event comes up in class, and to acknowledge that we respect that they can have those conversations in class. I think for the question around indoctrination and balanced presentation, I think perhaps really what we want is critical thinking. I think a lot of what we want to foster just throughout the curriculum with its current events or any other issue is critical thinking skills. How are you looking at this? What, considering different, I think you have to say we're going to consider different viewpoints. Because, in any current event, there's 5 different viewpoints at least, right? So, but the question is not that you have to give them equal weight, but I think looking at, well, I don't know, the Earth is flat, right? We talk about space exploration. That seems to be our topic tonight. Well, if someone says, well, I believe that the Earth is flat. It's like, well, okay, let's think about that critically, not completely dismissing it, but saying, okay, well, let's think about what we do and we don't know and how we know those things. Because I think ultimately those are the skills we want our students to develop. And then to Dr. Nicholson's point of, maybe there was some very eventful item in the news and it comes up in an unrelated class. So that actually goes against what we have in number 1. So do we even want to say that it has to be related to the course in what you're discussing it? If something traumatic happened and people are talking about it, can you only talk about it in social studies class? Can you talk about it in another class if students seem to be perturbed, having a difficult time focusing because of the events that are going on? So, I'm not sure what the answer is for that one because I don't know that we necessarily want a free-for-all. But maybe number 1 is, is appropriate to the course. Some level of appropriateness based on, is appropriate for discussion based on the event and the course in which it's happening. And that allows for, judging the scope of the event, the traumatic, is there a traumatic impact that needs to be discussed well beyond, anything related specifically to social studies. And then focusing in somewhere on critical thinking skills.
So I think those are all really valid points made. My concern with policies like these, on the one hand, really echo a lot of what Dr. Weston said with regard to a deterrent for dialogue, or some sort of an insinuation that should there be dialogue, that it would be some form of indoctrination. But at the same time, I do feel very strongly about providing guidance and authority to those in the classroom that are looking to navigate situations where they may be hesitant without a policy in place to have the conversation at all. So I would be curious to see, from the union perspective, if there is a feeling as though this policy provides some level of comfort or direction. And then also, and I'm not really married to any of the language in it. This is the policy that was presented to us as it was drawn up, but it can be however we want it to be with regard to the content or the language. I like the incorporation of critical thinking as opposed to, I think that provides more direction in terms of the dialogue that can happen as opposed to words like indoctrination or persuasion of a point of view. I don't think that having a conversation about a current event should ever insinuate that there would be a one-sidedness provided. I would hope that the conversations that are had in classrooms, especially at the secondary levels, would be, other than being age appropriate, really be more of a safe area, a safe place for open dialogue, as opposed to promotion of any one viewpoint on a particular current event topic. We talked about challenge or explosion. That would be one of them, 9/11, the Israeli and Gaza conflict. I think that is something that is something that does need to be discussed at the secondary level as appropriate. Those to me are all current event topics that are world events that I think our students should be looking to our educators for some guidance and safe place to have healthy discussion. So I'm curious as to the point of view of the union to see how you feel this policy applies to your practice.
Well, I can agree that the word indoctrination kind of puts teachers off of this policy a little bit because, you know, post-COVID, I think we've heard that word a lot, and it kind of puts a not so great taste in our mouth. I do think teachers like having some sort of policy that we feel like protects us and gives us the leeway to discuss these current events in our classrooms. Science and social studies in particular, I think these are going to be big hitting topics. We discuss these a lot. I do agree, you know, especially with Dr. Weston in, you know, the science field, the two-sidedness can sometimes feel a little more challenging when the science is really backing one thing to come up and be like, but some people believe this, can be a little bit more challenging. I think in the social studies world, that's maybe a little bit easier sometimes. But getting rid of indoctrinate would definitely be a step in the right direction, I definitely think.
All right, so rather than live edit the policy, I'm so sorry, Mr. Clellan, go ahead. Ditto? Okay. I appreciate that. I didn't want to go ahead.
I was just saying, I mean, number two, we can take out, we can leave, does not tend to persuade students to a particular point of view. We can take out indoctrinate, and it's still got the spirit of the concern, but without the connotation.
Does the committee feel, I was going to say, rather than live edit the policy right now, does the committee feel happy to have this come back to us with the edits discussed this evening to take another look at it, or would you prefer to live edit it and just move it forward?
I can go either way. I don't think the edits are that much, although probably we would be debating them. It's probably better to bring it out and maybe, you know, put the wording in and then let us all ruminate on it rather than it just being the surprise here.
I would agree with that. Right.
I actually really like the language that Dr. Weston suggested from the Thactin for number 2, which does eliminate the indoctrinate and persuasion thing. So I would hope that you would offer that up to them. I can put the edit that I had for the definition of current event in there. And another point I would issue on the third part of the authority, the encourages balanced presentations. And I will submit this then with an edit would be like a full examination of an issue using critical thinking and
I liked
throwing
the
that in
critical
there,
thinking
which
piece
is,
of it
yeah,
as
I was
well.
sparked with that by Mrs.
Yep.
Lofton. So I think we do need the policy. I think the teachers need to know that they shouldn't be afraid to broach a current
That they have the
event.
authority, right.
And the elimination of this would be, you know, would cause questions for that. But I think we can improve it, and I think if we had more time tonight, we could live edit it, but I think in the interest of
The spirit of
time,
efficiency. Excellent.
let's submit our proposals.
Beautiful.
have
They'll come back next
administration-
month.
Yeah, come back to it.
Fantastic. And Mrs. Reefer, do you feel comfortable capturing the spirit of that as we edit? Wonderful. Okay, so if there's no more discussion on that, we will see those revisions in the spirit of the discussion for next month. How about any others? Because that brought us back to the very top of the list.
Sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize. That's why we're doing this section. Go ahead.
The next policy that I had some questions about was policy 228.
Okay, pulling that one up.
Of course, my computer timed out on me.
So while you pull that up,
Got it.
that title is student government.
Correct. And the issue that I had was number 3 in purpose, offer another avenue towards the realization of district goals. It sounds very innocuous. It really doesn't say anything, as far as I'm concerned. I think we could eliminate it from the policy, and that my initial thought is it doesn't say anything. But I did have a secondary thought in that it implies that the student government is a top-down privilege coming from the board and not a bottom-up right that the students have. And so that flavor that's in there, depending, you can either read it as innocuous and it doesn't say anything, everything is that we do is for the forwarding of district goals. Or, like I said, it seems as if we're bestowing upon them the right to form their government. I would prefer to not have that language in there at all compared to, unless we were to rework it in some other way. Adding something like, it's an opportunity for the students to participate in a representative government, or something that is more focused on what a student government is, rather than this is to realize district goals.
I take no issue with that. Mrs. Lofton, do you have something to add?
Well, looking at what the purpose is, we've got, okay, student leadership, learning experience and democratic decision-making, but I think maybe the piece that we're trying to get at in 3 that isn't explicitly being said is to offer an opportunity for advocacy or civic engagement so that they have a voice in shaping their educational experience. So maybe it's not that it's an avenue towards realization of district goals, but, a forum for advocacy around educational experiences.
I think that's a very solid point. I know there were no recommended changes to that, and I don't know, both of these points that were made, both by Mr. Liggett and Mrs. Lofton, to me, took kind of a deep dive into the actual language. So I want to make sure that the spirit of the policy reflects what the intention is by high school leadership, what it's looking to achieve.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to weigh in with that, with regard to that, Dr. Nicholson?
I don't know that I have anything to weigh in. I do believe that civic engagement is a large portion of what we try to accomplish. I don't know that striking 3 completely is off the table, but I think I'd like to at least run this by Dr. Fuller and get his sense of what he would like to achieve and what this would be looking towards. So if it's all right, we can run this by him again with the feedback from the group. If there's any more, we'll be glad to take that back and then bring it back to the committee next month.
I'd be happy with that. I think that these 2 conversation points make it more robust. Go ahead.
And just as we're talking about this a little bit more, I think the language that we've used in the past is, encouraging student voice. And maybe that's what we want to reflect in the policy. I'm not wed to the specific wording that I suggested, but, something in that spirit.
I like that.
Yeah.
Any other comments? All right, so we'll go ahead and bring that one back.
Can I?
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Just
John.
one more comment on, this is just a quick question, I hope, on the procurement card policy, policy 625. Just something I didn't understand in the table where it talks about transaction limits, transactions/authorizations per day. On that line, it says every, and I don't know what every means in that context. Is that 1 transaction a day? Is
Mr.
that-
Weaver,
So
policy 625.
Yeah, what page are we on?
We're on page 2, I believe.
Page 2. Oh, what that means is, for every transaction, those limits apply for every transaction,
Okay,
all right?
all right.
In other words, it's 100% coverage that these apply for all of these transactions. There's nothing that we can say, oh, just this is an exception to this rule. It applies to everything.
Are you all right with that response, Dr. Weston?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So to recap, if there are no other specific policies that call into question, we are going to hold 119, which is current events, and hold 228, which is student government, to be returned with incorporation of some of the spirit of the conversation we had this evening, and the others, if there are no objections, will move forward.
Sounds good.
Consensus. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That ends section 2. We were moving on to section 3, which is the PSBA and the legal policy, PNNs. There are none for February 2026 as presented. Moving on to section 4, local policies. There are no local policies to review for February. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to address or bring up? Yes, Mrs. Lofton.
So I did want to follow up on our conversation around the class sizes. And we had discussed this during the board meeting last week. And I think my question around it was truly a question of arithmetic. And what I think would make the most sense to me for that policy would be just to widen the ranges downward. So,
Okay.
you know, if we're dividing, and we can have this discussion during the board meeting as well.
So we can talk about it now, because we have Ms. Benza now, and I know Dr. Nicholson was ready to talk about it. So if Dr. Nicholson wouldn't mind bringing up policy 126, that's the policy that Mrs. Lofton referenced that has to do with class sizes. We did bring it to the table last week, and we had some conversation with regard to the math not mathing based on the recommended class sizes being shifted lower, which would achieve the spirit of smaller class sizes for K through 5 and then 6 through 8 in our buildings. In situations, however, where enrollments may fall outside of the parameters of those class sizes, either on the higher end or the lower end, there were some conversations had with regards to what recommendations and best practice would be. And I know that the conversation was left that we would hold the policy, but have further discussion with administration and gather some more information. So based on that, and I apologize to Mrs. Lofton about it not getting formally onto the policy agenda, but that was an ongoing topic. Dr. Russell has let us know that Mrs. Venza and Dr. Nicholson are prepared to speak to that today. So I just wanted to put some context around it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and we did gather some more feedback on this. And I won't steal all of Mrs. Benz's thunder here. I know there was some conversation outside of the conversation that she and I had, but we had a great conversation this afternoon as well. So I think in general, the idea of moving the upper range of the class sizes down is universally approved of. Everybody does believe, especially in those 4th, 5th grade classes, that it's more appropriate to have in the range of 23 rather than the range of 27. And we've spoken about that in the elementary rooms that are the same size, K through 5, having those larger bodies in the rooms and having 27 of them is pretty large. So the lower range is something that there's a little bit more discussion on. And I'll kind of turn it over here to Mrs. Venza to give her take on things, on the sort of the boots on the ground. This is how we schedule, and this is what we look to when we're doing so at the elementary level.
Thank you. In our conversations about this, we were looking at, we often question, like, what does the lower number mean anyway, or do we need it even? But in thinking about it, it actually helps us to, like, be mindful of the fiscal responsibility as well, because everyone wants to have small class sizes, but we can't, you know, reasonably have too small of class sizes. But it really helps us to have the range so that we can have some flexibility within scheduling to look at the actual students that we are talking about putting in these classes, dependent upon the need, the numbers of IEPs and 504s and Ls and all kinds of behaviors and things like that that we would look at when we're making class sizes. So having the range helps us with that. Logically, it tells us that the smaller class sizes, we have more opportunity to differentiate, to have connections with students, to be able to assess them academically and emotionally. So that's really helpful. But in our conversations, we really just think that it's really nice to have that range to kind of check ourselves and to make sure that we have that flexibility when creating class sizes.
So would it make sense to have, so, what I was thinking about in this was, we've had, I think, these ranges like of, 3 students per range, since the time where we were dividing classes into, the elementary typically had 6 classes per grade level per building. And now that we're typically more around 4 classes per grade level per building, what I was thinking we need is a range that is wider. So it would be, 16 to 21, 18 to 23, 20 to 25. And so we're still sticking with that upper cap, but we as a board are saying, as you're planning that structure and considering all the different things that you need to think about in it, that, okay, wow, we're going to be recommending a class of 16 kindergartners, and, oh, okay, the board said that that's within the range of what they think is appropriate. So that's kind of what my thinking was around probably the best way to update
Yeah,
this.
because of I hear what you're saying, because with the smaller range, if you don't meet the lower end and think about removing one of the classes, then you're going to hit the higher end.
Right.
But,
You
so it's like
can't-
kind of, yeah.
You
So
can't
that make-
always hit.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't hit the range
Yeah,
based on how we've
that makes
structured it.
sense.
Yeah, and I totally understand where you're coming from, Mrs. Lofton. I think logically what you're saying makes a ton of sense, and we'd be open to doing so. I think we'd also be open to looking at what we have here, moving forward with it, and reporting back to the board when we do fall outside of those ranges. This does say it's a target, it's a goal.
Right.
Doesn't mean that all of a sudden, if we do hit 17 kindergartners, we're going to open another section, because as Mrs. Benza said, then we'd be above. So I do think either way, it's incumbent upon administration to make sure we're reporting back to the board how this looks in effect. But we're open to the wish of the committee. If we'd like to open those ranges and keep the upper limits where they are and move the other ones down a little bit, I think we're open to that. If we want to move forward with where it is today and keep you abreast of where we are come this time next year, if we want to make more adjustments, that we're open to that as well.
So, in the conversation, as it developed, I know that we had the request as well to do the walkthrough. And to me, Mrs. Lofton's concern sounds really more like it's on the bottom end of things, should things fall under. And I guess
Saying that it's okay. Yeah.
saying that it's okay.
Yeah.
Because that's not codified anywhere, but my takeaway from last month was that is the practice that happens. Like, under's not a problem, it's the upper thresholds that have always been the concern, should those numbers creep up. So in revisiting this and asking administration to bring it back with lower upper level thresholds, my concern, based on the conversations we had going into this school year, were that although we were still within policy, we were outside of what was really comfortable in practice. And so what my intention was in having this become top of conversation is to actually create policy that reflects more what we truly want in our classrooms. We don't want 25 second graders. So why do we have it in there as a threshold that would be acceptable if we never are going to create a classroom with that? So that was really the intention, the spirit of bringing the conversation back, and also to really take a hard look at how our enrollments are balanced between buildings. you know, to your point, if the math is not going to work out based on the thresholds that we have and the building allocations that we currently have set up, then maybe we need to look at another avenue to explore more equitably the distribution of students in the district. So it's more than one facet of conversation, but to me, it would never be necessarily a concern to have a lower class size. But I do think that the policy should reflect what our best practices are. So I don't have an issue with lowering the thresholds. My main concern was really making sure the top end of the thresholds really reflected what we want in our classrooms. And to me, that's not 25, you know, second graders. And I think we all agree on that. But it's a matter of having the policy reflect actually what we want to see in our buildings. So that being said, we do have the walkthrough scheduled at Skip Back on March 4th. I don't know who all has been able to commit, but I think that that will be critical in actually looking at the way that classes are being delivered. I want it to be very clear to the board, because it's out of context if you're not in a classroom day to day, what it looks like to have 22 first graders in a room with various setups and centers and things like that. And so I think I mean, Skip Back's our largest enrollment building, so I think that it's helpful that we see it in Skip Back. They also obviously have an autistic support hallway now. Obviously, that was never the case until, I guess maybe 3 years, maybe now, Ms. Benza? It's, I don't know, time, since COVID.
It's growing.
Yeah, it's growing rapidly, actually. So that takes up real estate, obviously. So to me, this is sort of a work in progress conversation, this policy, and I don't know if administration feels that same way, but I think that it does require more eyes and attention and conversation than just an annual.
Yeah. One more thing that came up in conversation with my colleagues would be the consideration of moving third grade into the K2 column.
Moving third grade down. And so that was one of the other things that had come up, was maybe we make all of elementary one bracket. But I know that the financial ramifications of that may have a domino effect. And I know that administration has always pointed out with due diligence that
Sure.
older children are okay with higher class sizes, just based on classroom management. But you're proposing that it would be K1, 2, and 3, and then 4 and 5 would be a different threshold. That was part of the takeaway of your conversation.
was,
So that, to me, I think is worthwhile to have that conversation as well. Did you have something else? Mrs. Lofton or Mrs. Benza?
No, I mean, there's so many things that go into this.
Yeah.
There's the talent and skill of the teacher, as it plays such a big part of this as well. There's so many things. It's not just a numbers thing, and I think that's what's important, what we're talking about, that we're not just going strictly by numbers. We're taking in consideration all of those factors that really do make a difference in creating a class.
And that's why I wanted there to be flexibility for application. So you may understand the dynamics of one fourth grade class versus another fourth grade class, and then actually set up a roster associated with that, is what you're saying. Go ahead. Mr. Leggett?
Thank you. I think the key to this, though, is the word recommended, and that these are fuzzy lines that we're talking about. These are lines that we can either move either way and are allowing administration to have the freedom to do that. So I think this is a lot, I mean, there's no right answer to this. It's a goal, it's something that we want to move towards. If we want to change, kindergarten through fifth to 18 to 21, that's fine. I have no particular issue with that. The only thing I would caution is, as we make these categories more narrow, and we are essentially losing the flexibility that administration currently has without going outside of a recommendation, because we're trying to constrain them, but we're telling them it's still a fuzzy line. I think that the numbers that we have here are reasonable with the recommended language in there. I think it affords administration the ability to do what's right in this situation without causing a big commotion because you're approaching this or you're exceeding that. I think it's useful for planning. And like I said, this is a fuzzy line that we're talking about. If we were talking about hard and fast, you are to remain between these numbers, I think it's a different conversation. But that's not the conversation that we're having, and that's not what the policy is. The policy is to give general direction to the administration that we want this kind of a class size. And I think that the numbers that are there currently do that.
I think going back to what Dr. Nicholson said about it being a guideline, and it means that if we are on either side of those numbers, it means that we need to have thoughtful conversation about justifying why that is and sharing what our thought process is for why that would be.
Yeah, and I would say, I believe where we are right now, I believe what is represented here is a step in the right direction. It's not the final answer per se. I believe, hearing all sides of this, at this point, recommend that we move forward with what's here. Again, we'll report back dutifully every month on where things stand, but just knowing that we need some semblance of an idea of what these targets will be so we can properly staff for next year. We're currently first reading in February, second reading in March, right around the time where we really need to firm up. If we push this down the tracks a little bit further, it makes it a little bit more difficult to staff our buildings for next school year. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I don't think it's the final answer. If we want to at some point later revisit the third grade moving down to K-2, I think that's an option if we want to widen the band because we're seeing in all practical purposes that we're not hitting that. I think we can look at that as well. But I think my recommendation at this point would be to move forward with where we are and just kind of continue to monitor. But I will, again, defer to the will of the committee.
I take no issue and continue. Go ahead, Mr. Cleland.
I've been told that 20 kindergartners is a lot. And I believe it. I only had one at a time. And I think it's a lot. Is that correct?
It's a lot.
Okay.
I talk kindergarten.
Just in terms of, I don't want to single out one grade and say that's where we should focus on, but 20 kindergartners in terms of setting students up for success for the rest of their career, and potentially limiting the need for interventions later on. I think that's 20 kindergartners is a lot. So, but again, it's just a recommendation. That's what the policy is. But I don't know if kindergarten teachers were consulted to come up with these numbers. So, it might be interesting to talk to them.
So I can't speak to that latter part, and I don't want to put Ms. Vince on the spot with who she discussed it with. I would agree that 20 kindergartners is a lot, but it's not the most. Obviously, there's always more, right? No, 21 also, 18 feels much nicer in a kindergarten classroom for everyone involved, no question. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this year, there's some 20s in the
Hovering right there, right?
20s, 19s, 17s, 18s.
In most cases, it's lower
Yeah,
a
last
little
year
bit.
we did hit 22 in most of ours in my building.
And that's total luck of the draw, right? I will say, as I mentioned last month, although that number is the roster on paper, it is not always the physical number that is in the classroom at any one given time. Kids are pulled out for interventions, they're pulled out for speech, sometimes they have a one-on-one with them, if they're identified to have one that young. But it is a lot. But kindergarten teachers are magical, and so somehow Sometimes 20 doesn't feel like 20 if the classroom is managed appropriately. Sometimes it feels like that many, yes. Sometimes it does. If the moon is full. So I would agree that in an ideal world, the lower threshold is really where we want to be. But with 22, if you skim off 3 from each classroom, you still don't have enough to make a whole nother section. If you have 4 sections to begin with, that would only be a class of 12. So I think I understand the challenge of a balance, because to me, I would want all classes to be very small. But aside from the personnel, I don't know that we have the classrooms. So, but noted.
Yeah, kindergarten's kind of unique in that. I mean, you have to remember all the accoutrement that come with a kindergarten class.
Yep.
And to add an additional kindergarten, other grades is a lot easier. Kindergarten's kind of a unique thing in that they need that setup.
And so
we're
that's where
kind
I
of
mean
limited.
about the
So
enrollments,
that's
they ebb and
We
flow.
got the flexibility
Right.
in here. That's what the policy has. And obviously, administration's aware of which direction we want them
What
to go in.
and the spirit of what we're trying to achieve.
And that's what the policy does. The policy
right.
states that, and I think the policy is a useful guideline, and the last thing I would want to do is hold up administration because we're debating about fuzzy numbers.
I agree with that. Does anyone on the committee have an issue with moving it forward and continuing to monitor and revisit?
I mean, I think as long as we're clear that we're okay being under, we're really wanting to avoid being over. And that's why I thought
In terms of the spirit of the policy
making a longer, the wider
on the front end?
16 to 21 says, yep, 16's fine, you know? But
Yeah,
but we don't want to, so you're saying that you don't want to say that 16's fine?
I think that we should have targets that we should try to hit, and if we see a trend in a particular building where enrollments for kindergarten, for example, are running around 15 and 16 perpetually, then we have a different conversation and a different problem to address. That's my feeling about the matter. Because I know, based on the enrollment report, that our elementary schools are not equally being utilized
Right.
unilaterally in an equivalent way. And that, to me, is a bigger concern than class size. It's part of that conversation, but that's my feeling on the class size piece of it. I don't feel like putting a lower number solves a different issue.
So if we have 70 students, let's say, you're going to get 17 kids, or you're going to have 23 kids. So someone's going to have to pick, right? And so you're either under or over. As opposed, so we're not, as a board, wanting to, through policy, provide any guidance for that kind of situation.
I don't take issue with providing a lower threshold. I just don't think it solves anything. I think it provides an additional bracket, but I don't think it solves an enrollment disparity between buildings. I think we just may be approaching it from a different perspective, because I do think we probably agree on the fact that one thing doesn't. I don't see them as different things. I see them as the same thing, but this only addresses class sizes, not building enrollment.
Right, but so historically, our overall class levels were in the 400s, and now they're in the 300, for 20 years, they were in the 400s. And, that was sort of the mouse moving through the snake when, subsequent to all the development that happened rapidly in the district. Yep. And now we're more in the low 300s. And we have 4 elementary buildings. So we're just going to have more closer to a 70 to 80, assuming everybody was divided equally, which I understand that they're not, you're going to have somewhere, 300 and, you're going to have closer to 70 to 80 students per grade level per building. And so that's where you have.
The lower numbers.
Yeah. Even if it was split evenly, which, recognizing it's not, you're going to have a hard time with, 70 students. You're going to have to.
So you feel
either
like
be
it would
under or
more
over.
accurately reflect what is in practice in front of the buildings if we lower the threshold?
Right, yes, that is what I've been trying to say.
Okay. And so I mean, and again, I don't take issue one way or the other. I again voiced that I was more concerned about the top level. But I hear what you're saying about the
Absolutely.
lower
And
level.
That's where, and the first time we had this conversation, I was like, yep, bring that top level right on down, because yes.
But in looking at the math, you feel as though
And then we
to
were
have it
looking
be a
at-
true reflection. Okay.
Yeah,
Can we make the revision for the lower threshold? Does administration see any issue in making a revision to allow for the bracket to be widened on the lower end? I guess I should ask.
No, I don't see an issue. As I said, if the will is to open it up and make a bracket that is, let's say, 5 students wide, I think that's something that we can look at. Knowing that that's the direction we're heading, we have some guidance as we go into staffing season and to looking into next school year. It does just provide that guidance. It's just a little bit longer probably until we have the policy adopted.
Well, we
May
could
I?
make the go ahead, Mr. Liggett.
I'm sorry. I just disagree with the fact that we need to go back with this. I think it's recommendations, it's fuzzy numbers, it's a policy that we're presenting that's already going on to second read if we do nothing here. I think it's adequate the way it is, and honestly, I don't think I don't think we're gaining anything by revisiting these numbers. I think because everything that we're talking about is what ifs and different scenarios and all that, which is accommodated in the policy because it says recommendations. I mean, if administration doesn't have the message that we're looking for smaller class sizes right now, we need to, do something else. I think the policy is clear. I think it is flexible. And honestly, I would just like to see this continue on into the second read. I don't think we need to tweak it any further. I wouldn't want to hold up planning for next year for
Noted.
tweaks that are just fuzzy numbers.
Got it. Noted, and Mrs. Lofton's point was noted as well. Dr. Weston, do you have an opinion about a hold or a push forward?
I really don't have an opinion here. I am very happy to take the recommendation of the administration and the faculty as to what they want these targets to be.
All right. I'm fine either way, and it's noted what you've said. I promise that this conversation is not over, but I think that putting it forward to allow for planning purposes will at least stick a pin.
I do think it sticks a pin in
And
it
I
with-
also think that it is an improvement to the previous, because
It
we've
is-
made adjustments. to
It
the
is
class sizes.
absolutely, when you look at it from an educational standpoint and outcomes for students, a lower, higher end is much appreciated. It is a much better outcome than what we had previously.
And that's
We
the one you truly
absolutely-
plan on.
That is the one you truly plan on. And it is something where we've absolutely heard the spirit of the rule here and understanding that we are looking much more towards the lower end and we're more okay with being under the lower end than we are being over the higher end. So as I said earlier, I think we can, if we are moving forward with this, we are ready to get moving, we are ready to plan, and we'll keep everybody abreast of any changes, higher or lower, and make those decisions very thoughtfully as we move forward.
Okay? Okay. Appreciate it, Mrs. Lofton. Okay. That being said, do we have any other items to bring up during local? Seeing none, we'll move on to closing items. Section 5, Policy Committee meeting minutes will be posted post-meeting. Our next meeting is March 9th, which is next month, 1 month from today. Notice of video disclaimer, 5.04 is adjournment. We will go ahead and reset for our business meeting. Thank you so much. Discussion. Roll call, Mrs. Reefer.
Ms. Brady? Here. Mr. Liggett?
Here.
Mrs. Lofton?
Here.
Mr. McGuire?
Here.
Mr. McKinney? Here. Dr. Weston?
Here.
Ms. Westfall? Here. Mr. Williams?
Here.
And Ms. White?
Here. Go ahead, 1.03 and 1.04, Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent reflection. Mr. Rapp, would you mind reading the mission statement?
Thank you. The mission of the Perkiomen Valley School District is to cultivate an inclusive community of learners empowered to grow intellectually, socially, and emotionally.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. 1.06 is the approval of the agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. McKinney motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Westfall seconded. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries. 1.07, approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 12th and January 26th, as well as the meeting on February 2nd?
So moved.
Mr. McKinney motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Westfall seconded. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. 1.08 is our special recognition for this month. Dr. Russell is unfortunately not here this evening, but Dr. Nicholson and Mr. McKinney will go ahead and lead charge. We are proud to recognize the Link Crew Commissioners along with their advisors for their outstanding leadership and commitment.
All right. Good evening, everyone. We are, as Ms. White said, honored to recognize the commissioners and advisors of Link Crew, which is a high school leadership club this evening. This year's Link Crew includes 138 Link leaders. They're guided by 6 student commissioners and 4 staff advisors. Link Crew leaders are juniors and seniors, and they complete an application process. They participate in summer training and engage in ongoing training throughout the year to serve as mentors and positive role models to our underclassmen. Link Crew supports, as I said, the underclassmen with a focus on the incoming freshmen. Throughout the school year, they plan and lead activities that help students feel welcome, connected, and supported. These efforts include a May mixer, freshman orientation, open house, and monthly extended homeroom activities. Link Crew also contributes to a positive school culture of PVHS through initiatives such as Duck Day fundraisers and, for the first time, coordinating a homecoming dance for the entire high school. So we're proud to recognize the Link Crew commissioners along with their advisors for their outstanding leadership and commitment. When I call your name, you can come on up and grab your cookie from Mr. McKinney. And when all names have been read, we'll all take a brief intermission, go out and get our pictures taken out in the hallway. And then those of you that are with our Link leaders and advisors, you can feel free to not necessarily come back in if you don't want to hang out for the rest of the business meeting. So when I call your name, come on up. Tyler Coons. Marissa McGinley. Tyler Rathgaber. Sullivan Roop. Maggie Schaefer. Ava Spadaro. And the advisors, Mr. Sean Burke. Mrs. Michaela Kalenkovich. Mr. Tyler Wharton. And last but not least, Mrs. Melissa Felty. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you for your hard work throughout the school year. And again, we'll take a brief intermission. We'll go out, we'll get some pictures taken, and then we'll reconvene the meeting.
I will now open the floor. Oh, that's not what I wanted it to be. I will now open the floor for public comment. The board provides the public an opportunity to comment on any topic for a duration of 3 minutes. Please state your name and municipality. Dr. Nicholson, do you happen to have your timer? Yep. Just display that. Excellent. I don't think we'll need it, but just in case, we'll be ready. And I open the floor. So right at that microphone, you're going to probably need to turn it on. There's probably a button, probably. Yes?
There it is.
Fabulous. Okay, so your name and municipality, and then whatever issue you are bringing to us to hear.
Hi, I'm Beth Mattia, and I live in Perkiomen Township. Okay. I'm here to talk about middle school cheer. I respectfully request that middle school cheer club be changed to a sport. Hold on. Instead of a club, which we've been working with since the fall. The program has had a very successful season. We're finishing up tomorrow with a really strong student participation and a positive impact on our school community. As interest continues to grow, we would appreciate the opportunity to discuss the future of the program, including the benefits of transitioning from a club to a sport. Doing so would allow for clear safety guidelines and skill expectations, such as what students can safely do or with or without mats, and to ensure the program is supported by qualified and dedicated leadership. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So as I mentioned, I know that your intention was to have this, normally there's no engagement after public comment, but just so we'll have the conversation, I just want to be very clear. So your intention was to have that added to the agenda for discussion. So we won't be doing that tonight, but your public comment is noted on public record, and we will take that back to administration and all of the stakeholders involved with making a decision or a recommendation to move from a club to a recognized student sport, and we'll make sure that there is follow-up back to you. Okay?
Does that come in the form of an email?
That would probably come in the form of an email, and so we will go ahead and, again, note it on public comment. Normally, there isn't dialogue during public comment, but for the purposes of what you're asking, I just want you to know that there won't be a decision made right now. It will be evaluated and noted, and then there'll be follow-up associated with it. Thank you very, very much for your advocacy, and thank you for coming out tonight. And congratulations on a good, successful year with the club. Absolutely. Are there any other public comments? It's hard to get up there, so thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Okay, very good. Okay, moving on to reports and presentations. Student Liaisons report, Mr. Lees and Mr. Rapp.
Thank you. Good evening. We'd first like to thank all the participants and organizers for the Women in Sports Day ceremony last week, especially the keynote speaker, Christina Warren.
We'd also like to congratulate all of the PAC champion swimmers on their performance, and especially senior Claire Mages, who broke a team record and a 20-year pool record in the 500 freestyle event last week during senior night. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, both of you. For the President's Report section, I wanted to just bring a little further clarity to an update about our superintendent search. On Friday, a letter went out to the entire district on behalf of the board, on behalf of myself, on behalf of the board, rather, basically inviting all staff, that's faculty, all support staff, all bargaining units, the opportunity to have a voice and say in what we are looking for in our next superintendent. That letter and invitation with the heads up went out on Friday. This morning, the link for the actual staff survey went out. That will remain open until February 27th. Tomorrow, which is Tuesday, the survey will go out to all community stakeholders, and that will be posted on our website. If you don't mind, Dr. Nicholson, he'll post. So right here on Perkiomen Valley's website, there actually is a landing page for the superintendent search. All of the links, in addition to the posting for the position itself, will be on there. The position, again, is being posted by MCIU. They are handling facilitation of the search with regards to collection of applications and resumes, and they are helping to coordinate all information as it comes back to the board. And then we have an internal team also obviously helping to facilitate communication and collection of information. So the stakeholder input survey, if you just scroll just a smidgen, will be right there. There's the survey link. And then in addition to that, there will be community focus group forums. They will be run by the IU, and they will be virtual. There'll be an opportunity for you to put comments or questions in the chat. They are brief. They're only about a half an hour. The first one will be open to high school students. That'll be on Tuesday, February 17th from 2 to 2:30. Also on Tuesday, February 17th, from 2:30 to 3, all high school level staff are invited to sign into the Zoom link for the focus group. That link will also be posted. Middle school staff, they have a window of time on Wednesday, the 18th from 2:30 to 3. Community members have 2 opportunities to sign in. Both of them are on Thursday, February 19th. One is from 8 to 8:30 a.m. One is from 6 to 6:30 p.m., so hopefully that'll give you enough flexibility to be able to sign and listen in to that half an hour. And then elementary level staff will have an opportunity for the focus group run by the IU on February 20th. That's a Friday from 8 to 8:30. I wanted to provide those options as well. The community survey, as I mentioned, will be distributed tomorrow. That'll be available, and it'll go out via what modality? Parent Square, and then we can also follow up perhaps with just another separate text to go to those that do not have Parent Square. We'll provide that option as well. And if there are any questions, you're, of course, welcome to email any of us on the board, or you can submit, I don't know if there's a question button on this particular page, but we can make sure that there's one added. So perhaps Mrs. Reefer can field the questions as our board secretary. All right, so that's basically my update, and we're looking forward to gathering a lot of good intel and information and getting the conversation started, so thank you. Okay, 2.04, Solicitor's Report, Mr. Subers.
No report.
Thank you very much. Board and District Committee reports. This evening we held our Policy Committee, as we do, the second Monday of every month. We have negotiations coming up on the 11th that will take place here at the high school starting at 5 p.m. Act 48, Ms. Westfall, you have on the 11th, correct? Education of the Whole and Wellness will both take place on February 12th. That is this Thursday. I just want it to be said that I unfortunately will not be able to attend Education and Wellness this month. I'm not on Wellness anyway, but I won't be here for Education. I will be in the very capable hands of Mr. McKinney and team. And then after that, we have Central Regional Planning. Dr. Clune and Mrs. Lofton sit on that. That's happening on the 16th. We have the IU meeting, Mr. Liggett on the 25th, and JOC is on the 18th with Mr. McKinney and Mr. Williams. The foundation did meet on the 3rd. Dr. Weston, do you have anything to add with regard to that?
Nothing at this point, really.
Okay, does anyone have anything else for board and district committee reports? Okay, seeing none, excellent. Moving right along to section 3, the consent agenda. I see the consent agenda as built and presented. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Liggett motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Williams seconded. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Against? Okay, consent agenda passes. Moving to section 4, education, Mr. McKinney.
Dr. Nicholson, are there any additions or updates for the education?
I have no specific updates. I did want to just take one moment to thank the staff, the faculty, the administration, and the parents at Middle School West for their flexibility on Friday. For those that don't know, Middle School West lost power mid-morning on Friday morning. It was at a critical point for serving lunches, and that was not going to be able to happen. So we were able to have transportation, have STA scramble the buses. We were able to effectively call a FID day for the second half of the day and get students safely on the buses and home, because of that power outage. So thanks to the facilities and the entire team at West for making sure that students were safe and appropriately on the buses and headed home before it got too cold in the building.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nicholson. 4.02 is approval of purchase of Chromebooks. Looking for action tonight. So moved.
Mr. McKinney motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Lofton seconded. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
4.03, approval to finance Chromebooks, new item added on the 5th. So moved.
Mr. McKinney motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Lofton seconded. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
4.04 is the enrollment report, which is attached to the agenda. That is my section, Ms. White.
Thank you so much, Mr. McKinney. Mr. McGuire, Section 5, Business.
Starting with Section 5.01, Mr. Weaver.
Thank you. So for the update we have tonight, the governor's budget came out last Tuesday. There were some preliminary numbers that were shared with the board. We've been cautioned by PASBO and PSBA to be very careful with those numbers. And so we are being very cautious. We're not showing any kind of additions at this point in time, other than what we received from our 25-26 that we carried forward to 26-27. So for now, it's kind of a status quo. As from our professional organizations, we'll continue to monitor and adjust as the months go on. We are hopeful that we have a budget in place from the state perspective sometime before we have to make a final approval, but there's no guarantee. They're right back in the sandbox again. So that's all I have to report from an update there.
Section 5.02 is on consent. Section 5.03, approval of property tax and rent rebate program resolution. Are there any updates for this? No.
So that item was covered in the Finance Committee of the Whole. Are we ready then to vote on that, Mr. Weaver?
503? Yes.
Okay, excellent. Is there a motion to move that? Would you like to make the motion, Mr.? So, Mr. McGuire motions to approve real estate assessment appeal agreement. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Lofton seconded. Are there any comments or questions?
Yes.
Go for it.
I highly oppose this. The reason that I oppose this is asking the Community Music School of Collegeville to enter into a, quote, a voluntary contribution agreement with the school district in regards to what would be the taxes that they owe to us as a school. They do not, because the county's Board of Assessment has already found them exempt. Upon finding them exempt from taxes, our district sought to appeal the assessment board and the community music schools bid to be tax exempt. This voluntary contribution, while it is the idea of the community music school that they're going to offer a donation in lieu of taxes of $3,000, which equals, quote, 22% of what they would owe if they did owe taxes to us. It is not a voluntary contribution agreement, because if they don't make that payment to us at some time in the future, then we can essentially go after them for the bill. We are to submit a bill to them for this 22%, and it says here, quote, if the community music school fails to make a payment of the annual invoice as stated in the annual invoice, this agreement shall no longer be in effect. It is not very voluntary because of this enforcement mechanism that's in here. Quite frankly, and this would be a legal opinion, so it doesn't, I cannot really make that. But the odds of a nonprofit organization that serves our community not getting this tax exempt status seems to be very small, and most of the correspondence that I'm reading on this tends to agree with that. And so essentially, if we were to agree to this, we are saying to the community school that we're willing to squeeze you for this 22%, this $3,000, essentially in perpetuity. To me, that is not voluntary, and I don't like that we as a district are going after a nonprofit organization for these taxes and then saying, oh, you would owe $13,000, but we'll accept the 3 grand. We're going to move on and everybody will be happy. I have a philosophical problem with that. I think this is something that we should have talked about before we even went and dragged them into the courts to do this. But here we are. Right now, there is an appeal by the district on this very issue. My solution to solving this would be if we want to take the $3,000 that the community music school is offering to us, accept it as a donation. Don't tie their hands on this. Don't put strings on it. Then it's voluntary. Then it is something that they're doing to us to foster this relationship. It's my opinion that we should be dropping this appeal and allowing them to donate if they want to and move on from there, because otherwise, we did this once with the Skip-Ack Fire Department. I just don't like that our district seems to be looking out to get tax money from nonprofit organizations. The logic that was used in our appeal could apply to Ursinus College, could apply to a church, could apply to multiple organizations. I think we're in the business of fostering community, not taxing them.
Thank you, Mr. Leggett. I'm going to have legal weigh in, but I want to let everyone speak prior to that. So go ahead, Mrs. Lofton.
So, Mrs. White, in my prior experience on the board, when there were questions about tax assessment appeals as legal matters, they were discussed as legal matters in executive session. And so I'm wondering if perhaps the best thing to do is, and I would defer to Mr. Subers, is this a conversation, I think there's some legal matters afoot here that should be discussed in executive session. So I'm curious if Mr. Subers considers this an executive session conversation.
It would be an executive session topic, a permissible topic, because it involves litigation, active litigation, and legal advice in regard to that. And I am prepared to address it in an executive session.
So we can hold recess and move to exec session if we should elect to do that. For context, this is an issue that was brought forward in executive session, and this is purely the assessment appeal agreement that we would be voting on. So this would be like the bookend to a previous issue. So, excuse me?
Oh, no, I was agreeing with you.
You were agreeing, okay. So go ahead, Mrs.
I'm sorry,
Lofton.
was that when I was away? Or was it
No,
prior
this
to
has
when
been
we joined the board?
ongoing for
this was
for
prior
a
to
little.
when we
This has
joined the
been going
board?
on for a minute.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So to provide context, and I don't want there to be a feeling that you're voting on something that you don't have full context of, then why don't we go ahead? We will adjourn briefly, recess, and then we'll return momentarily. To bring everyone back up to speed, we are on 5.03, which is a motion to approve the real estate assessment appeal agreement. There was a motion and a second. The motion was made by, I already forgot,
Mr. McGuire.
Mr. McGuire, and it was seconded by,
Mrs. Lofton.
thank you so much, by Mrs. Lofton. And there were comments made. There was a recess for executive session to put some context around this issue that has been ongoing for a duration of approximately 3 years. Is that accurate, Mr. Subers? Ish?
This appeal was just filed,
Understood. I mean the issue itself.
oh, it's probably longer than that.
Okay, so an ongoing issue, multiple boards, but there was some context given. And so at this point, we are ready to vote. So I will go ahead and say all in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Nay.
Mr. Liggett votes no. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Mr. McGuire, you may resume your section.
5.04 and 5.05 are on consent. And 5.06 report, there are no grants or donations to report for February 2026.
Excellent, thank you, Mr. McGuire. Mr. Liggett, payment of bills, section 6.
Thank you. Presented are the ratification of the bills and payroll and authorization of payments and the approval of the treasurer's report and financial statements, and I move to accept these.
There is a motion made by Mr. Liggett. Is there a second for both items 6.01 and 6.02?
I second.
Ms. Westphal seconds both. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries. Dr. Weston, Professional Personnel, Section 7.
Yes, thank you, Ms. White. Items 7.01 through 7.07 are all on consent. Item 7.08, the approval of 2025-26 winter coaches. This is a request to approve the appointment of 2025-26 winter coaches as listed. Recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Williams seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Item 7.09, approval of a memorandum of understanding for PVEA summer pay. This is a request to approve a memorandum of understanding with PVEA as presented. The recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second?
Aye.
Mr. McGuire seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Items 7.10 and 7.11 are both on consent, and that concludes Section 7.
Thank you so much. Support personnel, Mrs. Lofton, Section 8.
Thank you, Mrs. White. Sections 8.01, 2, 3, and 4 are on consent. 8.05 is a request to approve a memorandum of understanding with PVESPA as presented, and I so move.
Mrs. Lofton motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Weston seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Section 9, governance, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Section 9.01 is first reading on policies, and the following policies presented for the first reading are below. Any questions or comments on these policies?
Okay, seeing none, are we okay to move everything to second read? Very good.
That concludes my section. Thank you.
Mr. Williams. I appreciate it. That brings us to Section 10, closing items. The board affords the community an opportunity to comment on any topic at the end of the meeting. I open the floor. You have 3 minutes, and please state your name and municipality. Seeing none, I will now open the table. Comments from board members, 10.02. Go ahead, Ms. Brady.
Just hearkening back to the public comment at the beginning for a moment, I would like to thank the parents who volunteered to pilot the middle school cheer clubs with very little ramp-up time. They had a huge turnout and had, 2 really great seasons, and my child participated in the fall, really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate those people for, contributing for the kids.
Thank you very much for that. I second that. I appreciate it as well. Any other comments from board members?
Sure, I would like to take the opportunity to thank Mrs. Venza and the 5th grade cohort of teachers at Schwenksville for, again, under no fault of anyone else's, getting a late start on the Martin Luther King essay contest. And they scrambled really great and got us some kids to write some essays. And we have selected some winners or whatever, which we'll recognize in the future. But again, I just want to thank Mrs. Venza and her 5th grade cohort of teachers for going above and beyond and getting that done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. McKinney. Anyone else? Dr. Weston?
Yeah, I meant to mention, and I forgot during the previous section, with regard to the foundation, I did want to remind people that their annual dodgeball fundraiser is coming up March 7th. It's a Saturday. It's a very popular event. Rollicking good time is had by all. So please mark your calendars and come out and support the foundation and our dodgeball teams.
Thank you for that plug. No PTSD there at all for the dodgeball. Anyone else? All right, seeing nothing else. Notice of video disclaimer, and 10.04 is adjournment. We did adjourn briefly during the meeting this evening to discuss legal. I'll note that, and we will see everyone later this week in education. Thank you so much.